All officers, including the captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. That message was received in February 1948. No one answered. And then, one final transmission. 2 words. I die. February 1948. The Strait of Malacca. A narrow, treacherous corridor of dark water stretching between Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula. One of the busiest and most dangerous shipping lanes in the world. 2 American vessels, the Silver Star and a second merchant ship, were making their routine passage through those waters when something happened that neither crew had ever encountered before, and would never forget for the rest of their lives. Their radio operators picked up a distress signal. It was coming from a Dutch cargo freighter, a ship registered under the name SS Ourang Medan. The message was fragmented, frantic, and deeply, deeply wrong. In broken Morse code, the transmission read, SOS from Ourang Medan. We float. All officers, including the captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. The radio operators stared at each other. Then the signal continued. A string of unintelligible dots and dashes. Morse code that made no sense. Gibberish. As if whoever was sending was no longer fully in control of their own hands. And then, clarity. One final, chilling sentence. I die. And then, nothing. Only static. The Silver Star immediately altered course. Its captain ordered full speed. Whatever had happened aboard the Ourang Medan, there might still be survivors. There might still be time. There wasn't. When the Silver Star finally located the Ourang Medan, the ship appeared to be drifting. No distress flags. No movement on deck. No signs of life visible from a distance. A rescue party was assembled. Armed with the cautious hope that at least someone below decks had survived, the crew lowered a small boat into the water and approached the silent freighter. They called out. No answer. They climbed aboard. What they found made no sense. The deck was littered with bodies. Every single crew member of the Ourang Medan was dead. But that wasn't what stopped the rescue party cold. It was the way they were dead. The men were sprawled across the deck in grotesque, frozen postures, arms outstretched, faces turned upward toward the sky. Their eyes were wide open, staring, not at the rescuers, not at anything visible in this world. Every face wore the same expression, pure, absolute terror. The rescue party moved deeper into the ship. The bridge, the chart room, the communications room. The same scene, repeated again and again. Officers, crewmen, all dead, all in that same posture, all wearing that same look of unbearable, inexplicable horror frozen permanently into their features. And then, in the communications room, they found the radio operator. He was still seated at his station. His hand was still on the Morse code key. His eyes were open. His face held the same expression as the others. He had died, apparently, mid-transmission. Something was terribly wrong. The rescue party pressed on, trying to make sense of what they were looking at. They checked for wounds, for signs of violence, for any physical explanation for what they were witnessing. They found none. No wounds, no blood, no signs of struggle, no evidence that any of these men had fought for their lives, because it appeared, impossibly, as though not a single one of them had seen death coming. Or rather, they had seen something so horrifying it had killed them where they stood. In the ship's hold, they made one final discovery. A dog. The ship's mascot, a small animal that would have cowered from danger, that would have whimpered or hidden. It was dead too, and its face, if an animal's face can hold such a thing, appeared frozen in a snarl of pure, absolute fear. The rescue team had seen enough. They made the decision to tow the Ourang Medan back to port. Whatever had happened here, the authorities needed to see it. Investigators, doctors, officials who could make sense of the incomprehensible. Lines were attached. The Silver Star prepared to begin the slow, grim journey back. And then, without warning, smoke began to pour from the lower decks of the Ourang Medan. The rescue team scrambled to cut the tow lines. Barely in time, because moments later, the Ourang Medan exploded. Not a small fire, not a contained accident. A massive, violent explosion that launched debris high into the air and shook the hull of the Silver Star from a distance. Witnesses described it as extraordinary in its force, far greater than what the ship's cargo should have been capable of producing. And then, the Ourang Medan sank. Within minutes, it had slipped beneath the surface of the Strait of Malacca, taking every secret it held down with it. The dead crew, the unanswered questions, the frozen expressions of horror, all of it gone, swallowed by dark water, gone forever. The rescue crew from the Silver Star stood at the rails and watched, and they would spend the rest of their lives trying to explain what they had seen. What followed the sinking of the Ourang Medan was almost as strange as the event itself, because very little was ever confirmed. Investigators struggled to locate the ship's official records. The Ourang Medan did not appear in Lloyd's Register of Shipping, the authoritative global record of merchant vessels. Its port of registry was disputed. Its manifest, the official list of its cargo, was incomplete, contradictory, or in some accounts simply missing. Some researchers who dug into the incident later claimed to have found documents suggesting the ship may have been carrying an undeclared cargo. Something illegal. Something dangerous. Chemicals, perhaps. Or materials that certain parties did not want officially recorded. But those documents, if they ever existed, have never been definitively produced. The accounts of the Silver Star's crew were published in multiple maritime journals throughout the late 1940s and early 1950s. The story received serious attention. The proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council covered it. Investigators from multiple countries attempted to piece together the ship's final hours. They came to no conclusions. The distress signal had been heard. The crew had been found. The ship had exploded and sunk. Beyond those bare facts, nothing could be definitively explained. And then it got even worse. Because the more researchers looked, the more they found that the very existence of the Ourang Medan was difficult to confirm. The ship itself seemed to resist documentation. Whether through incomplete records, deliberate concealment, or something stranger, the Ourang Medan existed in a strange liminal space between fact and mystery, real enough that trained radio operators received its distress signal, real enough that a rescue party boarded it, but elusive enough that its origins remain disputed to this day. In the decades that followed, the mystery of the Ourang Medan attracted theorists from every conceivable discipline. Some were scientists. Some were investigators. Some were something else entirely. And their explanations were as varied as they were disturbing. The most widely cited explanation among maritime researchers is a mundane, but terrifying, one. The Ourang Medan may have been secretly carrying unstable chemicals, nitroglycerin, potassium cyanide, or compounds combining chemicals that, when mixed with seawater or exposed to heat, would produce lethal toxic gases with no color and no warning smell. In such a scenario, the crew could have been overcome almost instantly, collapsing where they stood, dying without struggle, their faces contorted by the physiological effects of rapid chemical asphyxiation. The explosion, in this version, was caused by those same unstable chemicals finally igniting, which would also explain why the ship sank so quickly and completely, leaving so little behind. It is a logical explanation, a scientific one, but it doesn't explain why, in that terrible frozen moment, every single face wore not confusion, not pain, but terror, the expression not of men suffocating, but of men who had seen something. A second theory holds that carbon monoxide from a faulty boiler or engine room slowly permeated the ship. Odorless, invisible, lethal. The crew would have experienced hallucinations before death, vivid, horrifying visions produced by the brain in its final moments of oxygen deprivation. This, theorists suggest, could account for the expressions. The men weren't reacting to something external. They were dying in the grip of their own worst nightmares, manufactured by a poisoned mind. It explains the faces. It explains the lack of wounds. It explains the rapid onset. But it doesn't explain why every man appeared to have died simultaneously. Carbon monoxide poisoning usually claims those closest to the source first. It is a slow death, measured in minutes, not one that freezes an entire crew, officers on the bridge, men on deck, a radio operator mid-transmission, in a single terrible moment. Some researchers have pointed to infrasound, sound frequencies below the threshold of human hearing, as a potential culprit. Certain geological or atmospheric conditions in open water can generate infrasound powerful enough to cause panic, disorientation, organ damage, and death. In extreme cases, it can induce visions. It can make a human being feel, overwhelmingly and completely, that something is there, something close, something unseen. It is a theory taken seriously in some scientific communities. And if true, it means the crew of the Ourang Medan died of fear. Literally. Killed not by any substance or any weapon, but by a sound they could not hear, showing them something they could not describe. And then, there are those who propose something else entirely, something that science has not yet catalogued. Those who note that the Strait of Malacca has a history of strange disappearances, that the region's waters have claimed ships and stories in ways that resist easy explanation. Those who suggest that whatever the crew of the Ourang Medan saw in those final moments, whatever filled their eyes with that expression, was not the product of a gas or a frequency or a malfunction. Those theories are harder to dismiss than they should be, because the alternative, the comfortable alternative, requires an explanation for the faces, for that expression, repeated on every man aboard, and no theory, scientific or otherwise, has fully provided one. The Ourang Medan rests somewhere at the bottom of the Strait of Malacca. It has rested there for over 75 years. Whatever it carried, documented or otherwise, is encrusted now in darkness and sediment and time. The men who found it, who walked its decks, who looked into those open, frozen eyes, are themselves long gone. The official record is incomplete. The ship's origins remain disputed. Its manifest remains unknown. Its cargo, whatever it was, will never be catalogued. What is known, what cannot be disputed, is this: a distress signal was received. A ship was found. Every crew member was dead. Every face wore the same expression of absolute, unnameable terror. The ship exploded. The ship sank. And the full truth of what happened aboard the Ourang Medan in February 1948 has never been established. Never. Not by maritime investigators. Not by chemists or physicists or doctors. Not by the researchers who have spent decades pursuing every available thread of this story. Whatever the crew of the Ourang Medan saw in those final moments, whatever stripped them of the ability to flee, to fight, to even close their eyes, It left no trace that science has been able to identify. Only the expressions. Only those faces, staring upward. And that final transmission. Those two last words, tapped out in Morse code by a man who was already, in some sense, somewhere else. I die. Not, we are dying. Not, help us. I die. Singular, calm, almost, accepting, as if, in that final moment, he understood exactly what was happening to him. And perhaps, that is the most unsettling thought of all, because it suggests that whatever the crew of the Ourang Medan encountered that February night, whatever rose out of the dark water or drifted through the lower decks or descended from the sky above the Strait of Malacca, it was not random. It was not an accident. It was something that, in the end, they recognized. The Ourang Medan is gone. Its secrets are gone with it. But somewhere, in the deep water, beneath the shipping lanes that thousands of vessels traverse every year, it is still there. And perhaps, if one listens closely enough through the static of a shortwave radio, late at night, in open water, there are still two words waiting to be heard. I die.